Hi students, welcome to the second part of the lesson from today. So like I mentioned, I was going to do a video extension to complete the part where we need to fix the error because we're having an error in terms of showing the animation. And the error is right here. So please just check your code, make sure you're following me on this. And of course, we also need to authenticate the user login so that the user can successfully log in and transition back into the home screen where the user can now select between the options on home screen. So I want to do this. This is your assignment for lesson 4. Make sure this works properly. And of course, your other assessment that you'll be given before lesson 5. So right now, if you go to console, we can't really run anything, well, because this is wrong. This has an error we need to fix, right? So when you come into the, even if you try to run it, I mean, it's still not functional, is what I'm trying to say. Nothing happens. So when you come back, let's try to fix this problem. So when you go to your code, the first thing you need to do, actually what we can do to make this happen is we want the animation to show and to show fast, not slow. So we need some sort of intermediary screen that would show before the animation. First thing I want you to do is I want you to take out this animate function that you have here. So pay attention. The animate function that you have here, we're going to take it out and put it on top of this function right here. Okay, so right here. Now, the next thing you're going to do, once you've taken out the animate, so remember what I just did, take out the animate function, and then this load and play function will stay here, and the animate function will stay here, okay? So once that's done, you make sure that your animate function has a couple of things. First, we'll say frames, add frames here, because we're starting, like I told you, the image is going to be run from the frame, like frames, as in the different frames of the images that will be run together, like a stop motion, to play the animation, starting at the first frame, first image at 0. The next thing you want to do is you have to change the way, delete this line. We are going to make a change to this line. We're not going to use the screen 3 dot label. So if you have this line, just take it out. And what we're going to do instead is when you go to your animate, just click on the, enter and go to the next line. And then we're going to do this frame underscore index. This is what you need to type in so that the computer can actually start going through the image frames from the beginning all the way to the very end. So that's why we're going to use something called a modulus, as you can see here. Modulus length frame. Okay, let me zoom in a little bit so you can see properly. So the modulus, what happens is that the frame index does not go past the length of frames. And remember I showed you the images and I said, if you were to understand how the computer is actually showing the animation, it's just splitting the images into frames like I showed you, and having those frames being stored in some sort of like array, like a list of place, like a list of things, like you have a pocket and you're putting things in a pocket, or a bag, you're putting things in your bag. So imagine you're putting all those frames in your bag and you're the computer and you need to pick them one by one and run them all at once. And that's exactly what you're doing here, and making sure that you don't run out of the frames. You run all the frames that you have in your pocket or in your bag. So I think that's an easy way to explain this. Now the next thing we want to do is inside this try, and then another thing is to please take out this animate. Don't call your animate function, just delete that. And now inside here is important. Now, if you remember, we created this label and I said the label was very important because it would help as a placeholder so that the animation can go on, right? So that label is still going to stay there. Just keep the label the way it is. Now, going back to this try block right here, we're going to keep everything the way it is. Nothing will change, except we're going to be adding something to this. So it's going to be 50. Remember what I said, 100 milliseconds is equivalent to 1 second. So when you say 50 milliseconds, it's like you're saying a half of a second, or 0.50. So what you'll do is add frames here because you want the frames, the image to go through all frames, and then keep the frame index incrementing by 1 because it will go 1, 2, 3 like I showed you. Another thing you want to add is before this screen 3, you got to add this label.configure. Configure means that you're trying to, spell that correctly, please. You're trying to tell anytime you want to display the animation, remember what I told you, the animation is going to be picked as an index. So starting with the first picture, and that's all going to be in this array called frame. So let me just see if I can explain this in a very easy manner. So what I'll do is I'll go back to what I showed you previously in class. And I'll use an example as I was explaining to you before. So I said, if you had all these pictures, these are all pictures, right? And if you look at this, this is an animation. So this is an animation, as you can see. This is a GIF. This is a GIF file. This is an animation. It was a video and it got converted into a GIF, right? So cute. So what we're doing for us to make this animation work in the program we're coding on Tkinter Python, what we're doing is the computer, or what the computer is doing rather, is that it's splitting that into frames, like I told you, splits into frames, and it will store all these frames inside of some sort of list, which is what we call frames that you can see here. So it's going to store it inside a list called frames. And then the computer will start picking these ones, starting at the very first one, 0. We start to count at 1, but the computer starts counting at 0. So very first is what we call an index position. So we'll pick the first one and run through all these frames all the way to the very end, which is 192. And how it does that is because you have a frame increment. You're incrementing the frame by 1 every time. So this is really what's happening in this part right here. Okay? So hopefully you are able to understand with that little example again. So once you've done that, your animate function is pretty good to go. You have no errors on this, so this one's fine. Now we're going to make some changes to this function right here. We need to adjust it so that it works and it plays the animation without any slowness or anything like that, okay? So that's what we're going to do. All right, so for us to work on this, the first thing we'll do is we'll go back into let's go step by step. First, we have the picture, right? So your animation. Once you decide what your animation is going to be, you'll notice that the animation is the one that we did today in the class, okay? So today as in Monday, as in the 25th of May. So this animation is what I chose, but you can take your time to look for really nice animations. I just chose it in a very quick manner, but this is what I chose. And so what we're trying to do is that we'll go back, make sure in your code that that first line is that animation, the name of your picture for your animation needs to match. Now, the second line for this one is to open up the frames, as you can see, where we basically make sure we resize the picture, the animation picture, to be the same size as all our other screens. And that's why we have resize. And this is quite a heavy, it's a heavy command. So it's going to make the animation slow down. So we need to do a sort of logic so we can make the animation go a little bit faster, or at least create like a waiting screen which loads all of your frames, because remember that it has to resize all the frames. Because right now, if you remember, when I showed you this in class, I told you that the size of the animation is 1000. You can see it here, 1920 by 1080 pixels, right? It's pretty large, the animation for this GIF. So imagine the computer has to go through, and imagine when it splits this into frames, how many frames there's going to be. And so the computer has to go through every single one of those frames and resize it. And so that's what really makes the animation to load slowly. So we have to do a logic where it loads faster. Now, what you want to do after this, so let's go step by step. So first of all, we have the frame copy. So everything from here is good, okay? So we've got, except we're going to make, actually, let's just rewrite this one more time. Can we rewrite this line one more time? So let's rewrite it again, okay? So what we're going to do, I'll call this line raw frames. Just delete what you have. It's the same line. I'm not doing anything, but with a slight change. So we're going to say frame dot copy. Okay, we're going to be copying our frame. Then we're going to be converting that to RGB. RGB is the typical color that the computer, like when you have colored pictures, that's what RGB means, red, green, and blue, like the primary colors in art that you do. It's the same thing for computers. They have primary colors. So frame dot copy, okay? And then if you have an error of the frame, don't worry, we're going to get that. And also you can delete this for now. Delete, get rid of that. So frame.copy.convert to RGB, that means make everything in RGB. And then afterwards you say dot resize, then you're saying resize the pictures. And then you're going to go through all your, once you resize it to the size that we have, then you're using the for loop to basically tell the computer to go through every single frame, every single picture that's going to be in your frames list, like I told you already. Okay, so this is what's going to happen at the end. Once you're done with that, the next thing you want to do is to start an animation, okay? So we're going to create another function called start animation. So because we're doing this, because we didn't do this in class, but we have to do it actually because the animation will load very slowly and we want it to load fast. So what we'll do is when we say start animation, we're going to create another, another command where we command the computer to basically start the animation of going from one frame to the next, to the next, to the next, like stop motion. This is what's happening. It's basically you're clicking, like you're hitting play after you have all your frames for stop motion, and then it's like playing and running everything. So here we'll go image tk. This is what you have to write. Dot photo image. And then here you put in frame, okay, because you're going through the frame. And then you write for frame, and then frame is because that's the each picture. And then you're doing this on your screen 3, remember? And you're using the for loop to basically go through your raw frames. You remember what raw frames was? The one that actually contains all these pictures, the one that I showed you from before. It's going to have like all the frames of your photo that's animated. So that's what's happening on this line. Now we are going to call the animation function here. So this is where you call your animate, which is this one that I told you to delete the calling of the function here that was here before. So we're actually going to start the animation by doing this. Now we also want to do a couple of things, and I'm going to show you what things we need to do. First of all, you don't want this, we're going to have to take out this place here for the username box, like for the text box of the username on the login screen. We're not going to put it here because if we do, it will immediately show once the user logs in. It will just, once the login screen is shown, like before even the login screen is showing, we want to have like a loading screen, like telling them, please wait while your MBOA FLIX login is being, loading, or it's loading or coming on. So if you don't remove this username text box where you place the text box for username and you place the text box for password for the login screen, then it's going to show even on the waiting screen. So what you need to do is take this out, take your username, and remember we're in the login screen function. So keep that in mind. Take this line out, just Control X, cut it out. Come down here and put it just before this animate. So this is actually where you position them. And then you take the same thing, take the password, take it out. Don't put it here so it doesn't show until they are actually on the login screen, not in the waiting screen. So paste it here as well, and do the same thing for the login button that you have in your login screen. Remember, again, keep in mind that we are still in the login function. So just take this login to button that we did in class today and come down here and put it down here as well. Okay? So you have all three things that you've just moved. Now, I already know my coordinates because I've already tested it. So I'm going to adjust my coordinates so that my button, like my text box for username and password and the login button, go on the right space. And when I talk about the right space, I mean I want to put the text box here. Okay, it's going to come here, text box here, username text box going to go here, password text box going to go here, and login button is going to go here. So I already know where to position them. I already know that. I already tried it and tested it and it worked. So you need to try and move them. We've already done this in the sign up when we were learning how to do the sign up. So I'm not going to repeat this process. I'm just going to do mine, and then you can adjust yours until you get it to the right positions. So here I'm going to make this width 270. And then of course the height I'm going to go for 46. The password, I'm also going to make it 620. And then of course the height I'll go for, because remember how the height works, like how the y-axis works, the further down it is, the more positive y is, because when you start from the top of the screen, is when you're counting down, it increases. That's why y is more positive as you go down instead of the normal opposite of math. And then here we have 270. Okay, and then here we have 46. This is for me, okay? You got to adjust your box in the right position for you. So here I'll go 620 again for the login button. Here what goes for me is 540. And then of course my width I'm going to go for 190, okay? And then my height I'll leave it at 40. So that's my adjustment. So those are the most important things to do. Now, another important thing that you definitely need to do is to call something called the, oh, and one more thing, please. This start animation, because we have give me a minute. We've got like the animation that you're starting right here, right? So you have the start animation. This screen 3, you need to space it in. Okay, so that's what I mean. Space this in. And once you space it in, you'll write down, let me just take out the space like that. You can put more space if you want. So just make sure this one that you have is actually on the same line as the start animation. And so you're going to say 0, comma, instead of load and play, you're going to be actually doing the start animation. You want to start this animation so that it starts showing your animated screen. So this one's going to be start animation right here. Okay, and that's pretty much it. That's the only change you need to do. Now, one more thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be using a threading, what you call a threading keyword. And the reason we're going to do a threading is because we want this animation to run fast, okay? We don't want it to be slow or anything like that. So what we'll do is we'll say our target is, because we have to call this function, right? We've got to call the load and play function. So that's going to be our target first, calling it and then starting the animation so it works after the loading screen is shown. So here you have to write down load and play, call this function, make sure it goes with this name of whatever you've called your function. So load, and I made a mistake, I have to put and then underscore play, right? And then afterwards, you've got to do the whole calling this daemon to true and then dot start. So dot start means that it's just going to start your animation. So basically what this means is that daemon, the thread will be killed when the main program exits. So the threading, again, like I said, is just like a sequel of getting your animation to play. Remember, and this is like if you want to put another animation, you just have to follow the same procedure that we're doing here to put your animation. You have to have an animate function, and then you've got to go your loading animation and starting your animation function and using a threading so that the animation is not slow. Now, you notice I have an error on threading. That's because we have to go and import it. So go to the top of your code and import threading. And remember, threading is used for handling background tasks, making animated screens, which are like GIF screens to show, to show up faster. That's why we use threading, okay? It makes it show faster. Okay, so that's pretty much it at the bottom. That's all you have to do at the bottom. The main things that you have to make changes to, as you have noticed, was what I've done. Now, there's still something we need to do at the top before you test this out, and also something we're going to do. In this video, I decided to also show you how you can authenticate your login, just like I promised you in the classroom. So what I want, first of all, is you go to the top of your code. There's something we need to do at the top. So you go to your top of your code, and it's going to be somewhere. Give me a moment. Let me just have a look and see, because we need to do it at the very top. Right, this is important, okay? So this is necessary, what we need to do. Okay, so we did say we want to have like a, what do you call it? We want to have a sort of like a loading screen, like a waiting screen before we actually show the logging animation, because the login animation loads all of those frames of images and it takes a little bit of time. So to make it look natural and not sort of weird, we can put a waiting screen, and that's what we're going to do here. So first thing we'll do is come back up, go up where you have your get username, get password. Create something, let's create an empty list called image cache, caching your images, like where you store the images, like this. You can call it anything you want. Then we're going to be loading our assets, okay? So we'll call this one load image assets. You can call it whatever, okay? So I'm going to call it load image assets. And then you can now open curly brace and then hit, not curly brace, but circular parentheses. And this is where your image is actually going to be loaded, the one that's going to be split into frames. So first what you'll do is I'm going to create something, let's call it GIF image. We're going to open our picture, and the picture is the one that you have animated. So the one that you've chosen and you want to be animated. For me, it's this one. It's called the user login. Okay, so that's what we're going to do here. Let's go back to the code. So we need to open that. So make sure this is image with a capital I dot open. and then put the name of your picture. Now, this is just to load your image. Remember, you have to have this if you're going to put animation. Okay, so don't forget. Now, the next thing you want to do is you're going to do image cache, the list you created at the top, image, and then cache. And then in square brackets, we're going to do login. So we're going to kind of like, you have to put a name for like where your images are going to be stored. So we can call it anything. Give a name for your image cache. So I'm going to call it login.gif. And then of course, afterwards you put an equal sign and then you open curly brace, or square brackets rather. And then I'll just split the square brackets into two because now we're going to write some things. So basically, we're just telling the computer to load the image and store it into this list that we created, an empty list called image cache. You can call it anything you want. It doesn't have to be called image cache. And then we gave the name of this image cache where we're going to be storing this image that we're going to be loading, which will be our frames from this animation. Now in here, you have to do this image tk dot photo image, and then open circular brackets and write frame, pretty much the same thing we did. So you can just go down and copy that. So frame copy dot convert RGB, again, resize master equals to, you don't need to do a master. So let's take the master out because we don't have we're not putting it on a screen here yet. So just do the frame dot copy. Okay, and you're going to get an error again because we need the for loop, so don't worry. That's why we always get an error with frames. So .copy .convert and then RGB .resize, and the size that we're going with, as you already know, is 1376 by 1376 by 768. Now after that, you go into the next line, and then you go for frame in image sequence iterator. That means you're just going through all of your frames in your image frames. That's what's happening here. And that's pretty much it. So that's all. And so at this point, what happens is that you're just loading your frames. That means your GIF image in frames so that you can be able to, to have it, to get it to load. So that's pretty much all for this part. And then let's see what else. So this is the most, this is really important, but now we've got to make it such that when the frames are being loaded, which means from your animated image, we need to put like a loading screen so it looks kind of nice and it's showing the user that the login screen is being loaded or is being processed. So this is a really fun part I think you're going to enjoy as well. So after you've done all of this stuff, now I need you to come back into your login screen function. And we're going to do a little bit of something here. And what we're going to do is we're going to come back here so that we can go and generate a picture so that we can show the picture as a waiting kind of screen. So basically here, I'll change this comment and say like display login waiting screen. Okay, that's what's going to happen. So we're still going to have our label, which we use to show the animation, of course, but we're going to make some slight changes to it. Okay, so we'll do a little bit of slight changes to this label. And this is what we did in the class, by the way. So what we'll do is we need to go and generate like a waiting screen. So I want you to go to your Gemini and you can, copy, just create something. Just say create a viral, captivating, background screen. I would say background or just captivating Cameroonian themed waiting screen picture for an app called MBOA FLIX. This screen gets to be displayed while the user waits for their login details to be authenticated. Okay, that means to be checked, right? So here, just make sure all spelling, everything's done correctly without any problems. And then, of course, once you're done with this, you can add some more details to it. I'm not going to put any sizing for resolution or anything because I feel like the image is going to be well sized already because we've tried that in class as well. Just read through it and see if there's anything you have to put in there. You could include a fun, you can say tech themed, you know, Cameroonian riddle. That's pretty cool for the user to read. For the user to read and be entertained while waiting for their login details to be authenticated, right? That's also something. And then I think that's pretty much it. Once you're done, just make sure you're on Flash. I showed you this in class and go for extended, and then you can send your prompt. Now, you can also do this on Google Flow, so you can choose, and that's also something I always like to do is I show you guys in class. I always like to go into Google Flow and just have like a second, third opinion option kind of thing. So I'm on Google Flow right now, and I'm waiting for this to load. And ooh, look at that. That's pretty cool. I think it's it's writing it in French for me, so I'm pretty much gonna say in English. So I don't want it, even though you could use it like you decide what you want, really. So I will personally like to go do this in English. So I'll be like, redo the picture and include all text in English language in the picture, in the new picture. So redo the picture above. You just have to give instructions so it knows what you're saying. And then you can, send it again because it didn't understand what I was saying. So I'll do this. I'll copy this and come back here and I'll paste it in here. This is Google Flow, by the way. And of course, change it to images and go ×2 for more versions. And make sure the text language is English. Text language in the picture is English, right? So we just want to make sure that we don't get the same problem as we just did. So send it to Google Flow and then come back here and see what this one's doing. Oh, it just changed everything from me to English. So that's pretty cool. So I could do that. It says in Cameroon, the first internet connection was launched in 1996 via the Senegal 2000 project. Today, MBOA FLIX streams your favorite movies in HD thanks to... Okay, so MBOA FLIX is not about movies because it heard Flix, so you could give it more details. But yeah, that's pretty much what this is about. So I'm not gonna go into this one. I like this one. This looks good. Did you know Boa means home in Douala? Our servers are like digital village, connecting you to the entertainment and lightning speed. Hang tight, we're authenticating your pass. I really like this one. So I'm going to download this one, okay? I haven't even seen the other option. Ooh, look at that. That's so cool, isn't it? Did you know Silicon Mountain in Boa is Cameroon's thriving tech hub? Young innovators are building. This is also very cool. I'm really indecisive. I'm gonna go with this one. So you gotta choose which one you want. So I'm just gonna go. They're so cool. So I have option 1. This is a nice waiting screen. You could even be smart and do like a slideshow and show one image and show another one. I mean, you could do an animation of this if you want to put it somewhere. You got to be intuitive in what you're doing. So I'm going with this one. I like this one. It's nice. It's cool. The other one too is pretty cool and pretty nice as well. So this is also a nice one. I might just go with this one eventually. So what I'll do is go back to your code and I'll just come back to my computer and I want to go with the first one right here. So I'll just drag this picture and put it in here. So I'm going for option 1.jpg. As you can see, my picture is now here. Let's go open it up. And so you can see my picture is right here, right? So I have option 1.jpg. This is my image. So it's right there. So now I'm going to go back to my code. And what I'll do is I'll come back over to, where were we? We were on the, here, okay? Make sure on the label in your login screen function. And then to show this picture, this is what we need to do. Just go before the label starts itself. And then I'm just going to call this one MBOA image equals, we need to show this picture as a waiting like kind of placeholder. We call it a placeholder picture. So tk.photo image And then just do it this way. You know, open the picture, but remember to write the name of your picture. Image open resize, the same thing we know, and we're putting it on screen 3 because we are on screen 3, right? So the picture is obviously going to be the one you want to show. And for me, I want to show option 1. This is the one I want to show. So I'm going to write down option 1. Oh, lowercase letters. Be careful with that. Option 1.jpg. Really important. And then afterwards, that's it. And then you're resizing it again to be the same size so it's smooth and nice, and that's all. And after this, now you come back into the label. We got to make a slight change here. So after screen 3, you're going to put a comma and write image. Now you're putting your image, you're setting your label to be an actual image. You don't even need to put a background color, so you can take that out because you're actually going to show this image, which is going to be the placeholder before you use this label to be able to show your animation. Don't forget that the label was originally created to show the animation. So in the beginning, it will be a placeholder like a waiting screen while the frames of the picture for animation is being loaded, and then afterwards it will change into animation. So here we're going to put the MBOA image, the one we want to show, right? This one, that's going to be our placeholder, don't forget. And then of course, don't forget to put a comma to separate with your BG background color, which you can erase if you want. Now we need to put it into, you're going to get a red line here, but it's not necessarily an error. It's just an unresolved attribute. Okay, because we can do, I believe we can do tk dot, and that might actually resolve it. Okay, no, it did not resolve it. I thought it would, but it's fine. You're not going to get any error when you run this, because here what it does is that it keeps a reference of your image so that something called a garbage collector does not delete your picture, which is going to be your placeholder. Okay, so it's like keeping a reference. So what it does is keeping a reference to the image so that it is not garbage collected. So if you get a red line, it's not necessarily an error. And if you don't include this line, then it's not going to show your picture. That's going to be like a placeholder that's there while they're waiting for the login to be authenticated. Okay, so this is why it's important to put that in there. Okay, so that's pretty much it. That's all you have to do to be able to have your placeholder image. So display login waiting screen, which is like a placeholder background image. Okay, so you can put the code in there. So now, before we test this out, let's go and authenticate. That's the next thing we want to do. How do we authenticate? We already created this function, if you remember. Okay, so the only thing we didn't do was we didn't get the username from there. So if you check your code, you probably just have this, right? This is what we have. We just globaled the get username 1, get password 1, which was going to store the username and password that we're getting from them entering it on the login screen. So now what you have to do is you have to, this is just a variable to store what they're typing in the text boxes that are here for the login screen. But now we're going to actually get whatever they type. So how do we do it? Well, we'll say get, we did this already in the sign up page. So get username equals to username underscore textbox.get. I think we already did this. Now that I'm typing it, I remember we did this in class. So if you don't have it, you can still do it here. So this will basically get the username typed in on the login box, right? And then this one gets the password, obviously, right? Whatever they type. So we get username, we get password. Now, how do we make sure, and this printing, you can keep it there for now just to check and see if you're actually getting what they're typing in. So how do we actually make it such that we can authenticate the username and password? So here we're going to do the authentication. That means checking where the username and password, if it's actually inside this file. Remember the sign up file where you have all of your username and passwords. Is it in here? And if it is, they get access. If it isn't, they don't get access. So what we'll do is, and remember that they get access so that they can go back to the home screen. Don't forget that. And then when they click on any one of these, then on the home screen, they can actually have access to open up any of these pages and any of those menu options. That's the whole point of this thing. So let's go back and let's finish the authentication function. So the next thing we want to do is to put a try block. I think I said this before. Make sure you space it in. Try block is important when you're trying to check files in the backend, in this case, the JSON file. So what we'll do is we'll go through the file with open. We've already done this for the user sign up. We're going to open up our JSON file, and my JSON file is called users.json, and then we're obviously going to pass the read command as a file. And then we're going to open the the user data. We're going to create a variable where we store the data of the user, of all the data we're getting from this file. Basically, that's what we're trying to do. This with open, just to explain what it does, is that it goes into your file and it goes into the file and it continues like going through every single thing in your file. That's what happens. Okay, if you're getting an error here, it's okay. It's because the try block does not have its exception block. We haven't put the except yet. We're going to do that. So remember, this line is going through every single user and password that you have in here. And that's how it's going to check with what they're entering and see if it exists in there. And if it does, access granted. If it doesn't, access is denied. So now once you're done, come back to this out here and put an if statement. And then this is where you say if what they have entered, if what the user has entered, type this without an error, exists in the user data, which basically user data was the variable that we're storing. It's like a list, actually. It's a list where you store. It's like you're reading from the users .json file and storing it in the user data variable. And now you're checking what the user has entered as a username and password to see if it exists. So it has to both exist, right? For them to have access, both username and password. So what you'll do is just say and user data dot get username one, because you're supposed to get the password corresponding to the username that the user is entering. And you're saying if that's equal, if whatever they've entered is equal to what exists in the user.json table, which is stored under this user data variable, and the username is also there. That's why we say if user get username in user data, and then user data get username equal password. So we're saying if they're both there, then we're going to show this message that says successful, you've logged in successfully. We're going to close this screen and we're going to be opening, guys, another screen. So this is the interesting part. So we're going to be displaying, again, let's call this one displaying home, right? So we go back to showing the home so that they can access now. And then, of course, we've got to do the else part, which obviously else means if they don't log in, then it will say login is failed. And you notice you have an error on this because we don't have this function. We're going to go and create it. Now, once that's done, you can also make it such that once the login is failed, you can clear the text boxes. Okay, this is how you clear text boxes in Tkinter. So clear the username and the password text boxes. That means it will go blank so they can type again and try to log in properly if they've made a mistake. So the thing you'll do is you write the name of your text box, and the name of our box is called username box, and this is for the one that we gave for the login, right? And then we're going to say .delete. This is how you clear it, and you start at 0. Like I told you, delete means starting at the beginning. You're deleting everything all the way to the end of the text box. Okay, so this is what the computer understands to do. So you're basically clearing the username and password text boxes. Now, the last part that we'll have to do is we'll have to put an exception, because the exception means that if the try block, if something happens, then you want to catch an exception. And I've explained this, maybe file not found error. So that means that, you know, the file you're trying to open, this one users.json, isn't found. And then here you can do a message again. You can do a message box saying that the file wasn't found, the database file wasn't found. You can say the users.json, you know, file was not found, so that is clear, and you can just write it exactly how it is because we use small lowercase u. Now the only thing we need to fix is this one, so I'm going to show you how we can actually display a screen after we load. And this screen is just, we're trying to like go back and display the home screen, right? So we have an error, we've got to create this function, that's why we have an error. So let's go back up. You can go back up anywhere. Let's come back right here. Let's create that function called display home. Remember, displaying home, that was the function that we just had right here that was giving us an error. So it's now not giving us any more errors because we've already created the function at the top. So what we want to do is we're going to open up a new like page, obviously for like a home screen. where they can access. So remember, we always have to put this line so we can call the parent screen that we all started with. And because we're moving from one screen to the next. So the parent screen, if you remember, was called screen, right? It was called screen, the very first screen. So that's why we always go back to that root. And so once you've done that, you've started typing that in. This is just a trial for you to see how this works. You can create your screen 4, just like how we did screen 3. Okay, same thing, same thing. Your child screen, and then you do your, give it a name. So home page, give it a size. And then resizables false, and then you can do the configuration where you want to maybe put a, I don't know, a color of sorts, or you want to put a home screen. It really depends on what you want to do. So for me, for example, okay, this is not .bg because this is not turtle. Maybe config something. Background black, you want to write something, whatever you want to do. So for me, I'm just going to put it as a normal screen for now, and we're not putting anything anywhere, so I'm just going to do screen 4. We are going to do this next class, of course, where we actually set up this screen and we do the whole data science thing. But for now, I think I'll just put it like that, so you can think of things that you want. Obviously, your home screen should reflect back to what you had on home, which would make all these options clickable, because that was the whole point of getting them logged in. So for now, just make sure you have the main loop. If you don't, it doesn't work, right? So everything seems to be set up. Everything looks good, all well set up. So we need to try to, go back and test this out and see if everything works. So at this point, you've actually done a great job. So what we'll do is come back to console and just make sure you clear all past runs, click your workflow, and run your turtle program if you don't want to run everything at once. And then go to your VNC. And I'll just do this so that you can see a full run of this. And then I'll click on this because that was the one we activated, right? So we come back here, sign up. And now if I click login, ooh, look at that. Isn't that so smooth? So you see this is our waiting screen, right? So it's waiting because of the animation. And it's supposed to switch us to the animation that would show. And that's why we have this, because it loads those frames. And the loading part is really what you have to be patient for. So you can see my frames, my animation right here, which is pretty cool. And it's showing pretty well. If you want it to go faster, you can go back to your code, by the way, and you can just increase the number, like the frame rate. So instead of 50, you can make it like 20 or 30, and it goes faster. And let me show you how. So I'm going to stop this from running. Remember that I'm still here. This is the animation. And you notice my boxes are all good. Like I told you, I knew where to position them already. So you got to make sure your boxes are good and everything works. Now, if I click login, obviously it's not going to log me in because I didn't put anything. So it says invalid, which works pretty well. But let's go back to console and let me stop this and clear everything, and then go to workflows and run again, and come back here and click again. And okay. And let's see if the sign up is still working. So I'm going to do Maria. Okay. So just check all these things, make sure everything works pretty well. When you click sign up, it says you've successfully signed up. Okay, so let's check if that's working fine. And we're going to fix the sign up, by the way, so it goes to the login. I'm also going to show you that. So if you go to your JSONs, my Maria is right here. So I should be able to log in with Maria. So next I'll try to click on, again, come back here. You notice I didn't stop and rerun the program. I'll click OK. Now I will try to go to login. I'm looking at my waiting screen. So remember that I have increased the animation, so it's no longer that slow. It should be a bit faster now once it loads. So let's see. And again, this is something that will just entertain them while they're waiting. So it's like you're waiting for a screen. So this is now my animation right here. And you can see it's a little bit faster than before, right? Your animation is faster than before. And now they can type in and log in. So let's try Maria. Let's see if that works. And it's supposed to log me into the second, like to the next screen. So you're successfully logged in. Okay, perfect. I come to my black screen. So that works pretty well. Now let's try not logging in incorrectly. So I'm going to stop clear past runs and run again. You know how I always like to double check, make sure everything works. So I'll come back here, okay, and then I'll come to login, and I'll try to log in to some sort of account that does not exist, right? And we have Maria. If you look at these accounts that we have here, we have Maria, we have Desmond, we have Paldi. So if I try to put anything that does not exist there, then it shouldn't work. So I'll do like Alex. Let's see if I can log in as an Alex. right? And then I click login. It says no, invalid username and password. And you notice that it clears for me my screen. So if I do Desmond now, so I should be able to, that was wrong. Let's spell Desmond properly. So Desmond, and Desmond exists, right? So I should log in properly. So once I click it, I log in successfully and I go to my black screen. So it works pretty well. So that's pretty much it. Now, one more thing before we end this video is I want us to direct them once they're on the sign up. They should be able to, once they sign up successfully, they should be able to go back and be redirected to the login. So just go to your sign up function. Make sure you're on sign up, by the way. Okay, go back to your function where you have sign up, authenticate sign up. It's there, it's inside of your display sign up. And in there, you will go to the line where you did successful sign up and you close your screen too. And then after that line, you're going to call your login screen function, which is the one that we've just done at the very beginning, at the very top right here, that has this one that basically has, your login, everything about the login. So once you've done that, what you've just done is that once they've successfully signed up, it will redirect them to the login, which makes sense. So let's try and see if that works properly. Stop, clear past runs, go back to your workflow, run your program, come back to your VNC, and remember that you click, and once you click, you come here, right? So let's sign up for a new user again. So I'm gonna go sign up with my name. I don't think I've signed up. I did, but I cleared everything. So I've signed up successfully, right? And then I'm on, you notice that it came to the login screen. You see what I mean? It came down here. And I'll try to log in now that I've signed up. So let's say I've signed up. Okay, it says I'm waiting. And then I'm waiting to log myself in so I can have access to the page. So I'm going to log in with my new sign up. And I should be able to log in successfully because I just signed up. And I log in successfully and come to the black screen. So everything navigates real well. So please make sure your program works in this way. Stop this video and play it as much as you can so you make sure it works. Be creative about what you're doing and add some extra features. And of course, don't forget to do your assignment. And I look forward to seeing you in our next class. Take care of yourself.